Okay guys, welcome back. So this time we're going to have a look at EQing other parts of the drum kit. So I'm going to look at the hi-hat this time. We've got our snare and our kick nicely EQ'd. So we're going to look at the hi-hat. And unfortunately the hi-hat mic has picked up all sorts of stuff in this recording. Because the hi-hat is playing such a busy pattern, as you can see there, I'll zoom right in. Because it's playing such a busy pattern, let's follow it along. Makes it really hard to gate. So that's why a lot of recording engineers actually opt not to have a hi-hat mic, because they're so close to the kick and the snare and other cymbals, they tend to pick up an awful lot of bleed. Let's just look at a different part of the track where it seems to change and listen to what's going on there. Okay, so the hi-hat actually isn't playing there, so might be in terms of this mix more of an editing task rather than gating to actually cut that bit out, because it's just going to add unnecessary volume and stuff to our mix. Okay, so could try and gate it out, I suppose. That's the EQ. Okay, so can gate it a little bit, but not perfect, as you can just hear. So that'll do for this example. So it sounds a little bit choppy. Hopefully if I unsoloed it and put it in the mix, it'd sound okay. But let's go ahead and look at the EQ. Let's have a look at the frequencies that are coming in with the analyzer. Okay, and we can see straight away that a whole full range of frequencies has been picked up. You usually use a condenser microphone on a hi-hat. In fact, you should always use a condenser microphone on a hi-hat. So they pick up a very wide frequency range, and they're very sensitive as well. So the recording engineer could have made some better placement choices and things like that to avoid the pickup across the frequency range, but unfortunately this is what we've got, and we've got to deal with it. So what we can look at, instead of doing our sweeping technique straight away, we'll look at our chart first of all and look at our hi-hat. And this frequency here, gong, this is quite a funny word, do we want our hi-hats to gong? So this isn't necessarily a nice audio quality. Just look at this one here, clunk on the cymbals. Could be nice, we don't know. But this one up here, this sounds quite nice, sizzle. So maybe we'll explore that one later. So we've got these two things to look at, which the chart suggests to us. But let's go back to this, and we couldn't gate it brilliantly. And we know that the hi-hats are a high frequency instrument. And you can see that happening in this region here, but we've also got a lot of information here. We can just about hear a distant bit of kick and snare because we can't gate it very well. Okay, so what we're going to use is the high pass filter, and we're going to sweep that up the low frequencies and try and cut out some of that unwanted noise. Okay, so that's cleaned it up quite nicely. So we can maybe turn the gate off and see what that sounds like with just this filter on. Okay, because the drummer is also playing one of the cymbals at the same time as the hi-hat, without the gate, we're picking that up as well. With the gate on, it seems to cut that out. So again, that's your choice as producer, whether that sounds good in the mix or not so good in the mix. You need the gate and you need the high pass filter. The trick is not to over process stuff and make it sound unnatural. That's when you're going to run into lots of problems. So let's make a little quick decision on the fly here. So I'm actually going to decide to use both, just for this example. Okay, so we've kicked out the kick, excuse the pun, which is nice, and most of the snare. What we don't want to do is push this up too much and get a kind of washy sound, you know, like this sort of sound. Because although it is a high frequency part of the drum kit, it does have information down here which makes it sound natural. So we do want to preserve some of this area. So we don't want to go crazy with our high pass filter. Okay, and they already sound quite crispy, quite rattly, and the chart is telling us that we can get some extra sizzle between 7.5 and 12 kilohertz. So we can explore that. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the high shelf filter to do this. And it's already set by default to start at 7.5. Depending on the bandwidth, it depends what area it will go up to. Sort of bigger area, smaller area. So let's go ahead and explore that. Okay, and another thing you must be really, really careful of is, just like with boosting your kick drum too much, our ears are very sensitive to high frequencies. So what I hear a lot of people do is put huge, huge boosts to really get the sizzle out on hi-hats. Again, you're gonna clip your tracks, it's gonna distort, but that is gonna be really, really horrible to listen to for all your dedicated fans. So it's all fizzy, it's all crispy, it's very, very bright, it's unpleasant to listen to. So be very, very careful of your boosts in high frequencies. So maybe just a touch of boost up in that region will give us what we're looking for. And again, you can scan around. So let's start at 5 this time. And I don't really want to dare go above that because it's very sensitive there. But just a little bit, something like 3.5, 4 decibels, has given it a noticeable lift, a bit of sizzle, as the chart indicated. So other things we could do here, if we had a lovely recorded hi-hat track with no snare sound on it, we wouldn't need to do this, but we probably need to do a few more remedial EQ cuts. So let's look at where this snare is hitting. I can see here, so snare is still peaking, so let's see what it sounds like if we cut there. We've got less snare now. The snare sounds very thin and papery. We've got more hi-hat sound. What you might be tempted to do is leave that as it is and think, yes, I've got rid of the snare and boost up here, but that's just going to make your hi-hat sound more brittle and more bright and not very nice. So let's back that off a little bit and see what kind of a happy medium is. Also, the other thing to remember is that although the majority of the information is happening up here on the hi-hat, there is also frequency information of those hi-hats happening down here. So if I cut down here, I'm going to affect the lower range of the hi-hats. So by doing that, can you tell they sound a bit more sort of metallic and brittle? They've lost a bit of their sort of weight or their depth. Okay, so something like that. Again, sorry for the terrible hi-hat track recording example, but best way to learn is actually with imperfect material. If this was a sample and you put this into a drum machine, obviously you wouldn't be having this sort of problem. And there are obviously other things you could do, like explore your boosts around here, explore around these areas. So what happens if you boost or cut around there? Sounds terrible. So does that, so make it sound all sort of chattery. But again, good to explore, hear what is going on in different ranges. But on a hi-hat track, low pass filter is always your friend, and a tiny little boost up here can give them a bit more sizzle, a bit more life. Always reference with it on and off to see whether you've made an improvement or not. If it sounds rubbish, don't do it. Doesn't need it. Or you've not EQ'd it good enough. Time to revise what you've done. And remember, no huge boosts, please, because you're going to really offend somebody's hearing. Okay, thanks for watching.